Welcome to Teen Norma Beyond the Pages.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So to start us off, if you're new to the program, Teen is this amazing AI-powered platform created by the PNU Publication Office. And our whole mission here is to feature published, peer-reviewed research articles, the kind of stuff that usually stays locked up in academic journals, and, discuss them in an accessible, engaging audio format.
Right, because there's so much incredible data out there, but it doesn't always reach the people who could actually use it.
Exactly. We really want to bridge that gap between academia and, well, everyone else. We're all about inclusive knowledge sharing. So I have a question for you, the listener. Think about your workplace. When you look at how much work people get done, do you think men and women are motivated differently?
It's funny you ask that because conventionally, management looks at the averages. And if you just look at the average drive of an employee, you might think everyone's basically the same.
Right.
But the truth is, the answer to that question isn't found in the averages at all. It's actually found in the extremes.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the specific text we're getting into today. We're doing a deep dive into this really fascinating research article.
Yeah, it's a quantitative exploratory study.
Let me make sure I have the title right. It's called Exploring Gender Differences in Motivational Variability for Early-Stage Academic Research.
That's the one. It was published in the PRISMA Gender and Education e-journal.
Oh, right. Volume 2, Issue 2, and that came out in 2025.
Yeah, fairly recent.
Yeah.
And it's by a really solid team of researchers. Leo Mendel, Rosario, Sean Patrick Gamit, Noel Navigar, Roda Tajon, and Maria Lourdes Jarabe.
Quite a team. And where are they based?
They're affiliated with the University of the Philippines Open University and the Philippine State College of Aeronautics.
Which is super relevant to the context of the study itself.
Ah.
So let's talk about the background here. Why did they even write this paper?
Well, there is this really pervasive gender productivity gap in academia. Historically speaking, female academics author and co-author way fewer journal publications than men.
Wow, still. Even today.
Yeah, unfortunately. And, the COVID-19 pandemic actually made it significantly worse.
Oh, because of the whole work-from-home dynamic.
Exactly. The pandemic intensified what we call the multiple burdens faced by female academics. Things like sudden childcare, managing the household, all while trying to maintain academic output.
So obviously motivation is a massive factor for career progression and productivity, right?
Absolutely.
But the weird thing is, when past studies looked at average motivation between men and women, they didn't really find a clear difference. The averages suggested everyone had the same amount of drive.
Which is exactly why these authors wanted to look past the descriptive average. Their main objective was to examine gender-based differences in motivational drivers by focusing on the variability, how spread out the data is.
Okay, so I was thinking about this average motivation thing, and it kind of reminds me of average weather.
Oh, how so?
Well, imagine a place that stays a steady 70 degrees all year round.
Sounds nice.
Right. But then imagine another place that swings wildly from, like 40 degrees in the winter to 100 degrees in the summer. The annual average temperature for both places is exactly 70 degrees.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. If you just look at the average, you'd pack the exact same clothes for both places.
Mm-hmm.
But the actual day-to-day experience is completely different.
That is a perfect analogy, and it highlights why relying on the average is so flawed.
But wait, if it's so obviously flawed, why did previous researchers miss this? Like, why are we only just now looking at the temperature swings instead of just the average temp?
That comes down to this really old anthropological idea called the Greater Male Variability Theory, or GMV.
GMV, what is that exactly?
It's this traditional belief that men naturally exhibit a higher degree of variability and measurable characteristics than women.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so for over a century, the scientific community just kind of assumed that if there were massive fluctuations or extremes in a data set, the men were the ones causing it. They thought women's data would always cluster tightly around the average.
So they basically assumed men were the city with the wild weather and women were the city with the steady 70 degrees.
Exactly. So no one even thought to look for high variability in women's research motivation until this study.
Okay, so let's get into the methodology. How did they actually test this?
They surveyed 104 academics across 4 different campuses of the Philippine State College of Aeronautics, or PhilSCA.
Okay, and what was the gender breakdown for that?
It was 65 men and 39 women.
Which makes sense because aviation is historically a very male-dominated field. The sample reflects that imbalance.
Right. And what's really crucial here is the context of PhilCA itself. The institution is currently transitioning from being mostly teaching-focused to becoming a really research-intensive environment.
Oh, wow. So you have all these professors whose entire lives were built around teaching, and suddenly the school is like, hey, you need to be a published researcher now.
Yes, exactly. It's a huge shift. So to measure how motivated these faculty members were to make that shift, the researchers used an online survey with a 5-point Likert scale.
And they measured 14 distinct motivational drivers, right?
Correct. They adapted an existing research engagement framework and split those 14 drivers into 8 intrinsic ones and 6 extrinsic ones.
Just to clarify for everyone listening, what's the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic in this context?
Sure. So the 8 intrinsic drivers are internal things like your personal fulfillment, your curiosity about the world, or wanting to make a contribution to society.
Stuff you do because you genuinely want to.
Exactly. And the 6 extrinsic drivers are external pressures. That's stuff like wanting a promotion in academic rank or just complying with university-mandated research hours.
So carrot and stick kind of thing.
Basically, yeah. So they collected all this survey data, and then here's the really important part. Instead of just running a standard Welch's t-test to find the average score,
Right.
they used descriptive statistics to calculate the variance and the variance ratios, meaning they actively looked at how spread out the answers were for each group.
Okay, I am dying to hear the results. What did they actually find?
Well, the first finding is exactly what we were talking about earlier. When you look at the averages, male and female academics reported almost identical levels of motivation.
Oh, wow. Both intrinsic and extrinsic.
Both. On average, both groups landed between motivated and highly motivated. Statistically speaking, there was no significant difference in the central tendency at all.
But then comes the plot twist. Right, because when they actually looked at the variance, the spread of the data female academics showed significantly higher variability in their motivation than the males.
Way higher,
Huh.
which completely shatters that greater male variability theory we just talked about.
Right, because the old rule said men would have the wider spread. But in this specific area of early stage research motivation, it's actually the women showing all the variability.
Exactly. But it gets even more specific than that. The researchers dug deeper into the demographics and found something incredible. The high variability wasn't just true for all women, it was incredibly concentrated.
Among married women with children.
Yes, married women with children had a mean variance of 1.33.
1.33. And just for comparison, what were the other groups?
Single women had a variance of 0.88. Married women without children were even lower at 0.74.
That is a massive jump.
Yeah.
1.33 compared to 0.74. What about the men?
This is where it gets really stark. For the men, the variance stayed consistently low across the board, hovering between 0.73 and 0.92 completely, regardless of their marital or parental status.
Wait. Let me just pause and clarify this for the listener. The data isn't saying that mothers are somehow less motivated to do research, right? Because the average was still high.
Right, the drive is absolutely there.
Okay, so it's rather that their motivation levels are just far less consistent or predictable from day to day.
You hit the nail on the head. It's about consistency. And the reason for this really gets into the why of the discussion.
What's causing these huge swings in motivation for mothers?
It points to these really complex, oscillating dynamics. A mother's capacity to focus on research swings wildly based on the support systems available to her on any given day.
Like whether her partner is sharing the parenting duties that day or if childcare falls through.
Exactly. The demands of family life and traditional reproductive roles are completely unpredictable. If the kids are sick or the support network fails, that immediate crisis consumes all her cognitive space. The motivation to do research drops. But when things stabilize, it spikes back up.
That makes total sense. I mean, we've all experienced something like that with work-life balance. But for academia, which demands such deep, uninterrupted focus, these multiple burdens and daily parental duties are just fundamentally incompatible with traditional academic work arrangements.
They really are. And that brings us to how this data should actually be applied in the real world. The authors reference Fogg's model of behavioral change here.
Oh, right. Fogg's model says you need both the motivation and the ability to trigger a behavior.
Exactly. You can't just tell a female academic to be more motivated when her average motivation is already high. The problem isn't the drive, it's the ability. Institutions are failing to provide the structural ability for them to succeed.
So what does a gender-inclusive environment actually look like then, if standard policies don't work?
It means going way beyond standard generic policies. Institutions need to offer targeted support. We're talking about direct child care assistance. We're talking about highly flexible work modes that accommodate an oscillating schedule.
Right, not just a rigid 9 to 5 or a strict tenure clock.
Yes, the study specifically mentions rationalizing tenure arrangements. You have to
Hmm.
evaluate productivity in a way that makes sense for someone who is juggling caregiving instead of just assuming everyone operates on a perfectly linear timeline.
Which really brings us to the core scientific contribution of this entire paper. I mean, zooming out from just mothers in academia to what this means for research as a whole.
The biggest takeaway is that if researchers only look at statistical averages, they are going to obscure profound gender dynamics and real-world struggles.
Yeah, using mean variances and variance ratios like they did here provides this vital new methodological lens for the social sciences. It's like putting on glasses for the first time.
It really is. It forces organizations to see the invisible friction that people are dealing with.
And I think there's a really important reflective thought here for you listening right now. When we talk about true equity, it isn't just about ensuring everyone has the same average level of drive. It's about recognizing and actively supporting the invisible, fluctuating burdens that make maintaining that drive so much harder for some people than for others.
Absolutely. You have to support the whole person.
Well, this has been an incredibly eye-opening discussion. For everyone listening, we explicitly invite you to read the full original article. It is so worth your time. You can find it via the PRISMA Journal, or you can just scan the QR code provided with the program materials.
The methodology alone is fascinating to look at in detail.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the source material. We really encourage you to continue engaging with academic research through Teenique Normal Beyond the Pages.
And just before we sign off, I'd like to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Oh, definitely. What is it?
Think about this. If traditional 9-to-5 jobs and academic tenure tracks were historically built for workers who didn't have primary caregiving duties, what other average metrics in our own modern workplaces are hiding massive systemic imbalances?
That is a great question to end on. Until next time.